Hey guys, Virgin Vinyl with you again today. So I finally got this order that I ordered, pre-ordered about 2 or 3 months ago, and it was supposed to come at the beginning of May, but it just arrived yesterday, and I'm very stoked to have it because it's something that I've wanted on album for years, and it just was never available. I had it on VHS. I had it on DVD, and of course what I'm talking about is Pink Floyd live at Pompeii. So, this is the double vinyl edition. This was just released in May, and it was, has been remixed by Steven Wilson. Now, I have to say, I was a little bit nervous about that, to be honest, because I do like some of Steven Wilson's remixes. I think he did a really good job with the Gentle Giant stuff, and some of the Jethro Tull stuff is really good as well. But I really didn't like his remixes of Yes. I thought he sort of sucked the life out of those albums. They just didn't quite sound right to me. Like when I listened to his version of Close to the Edge and Fragile, Close to the Edge especially, there's just something missing there. But anyway, I had the DVD, which many years ago I ripped the sound from and made my own digital version. So I burned it on a CD, so I used to play it in my car all the time. And I had a digital version for my, iPod originally, and then iPhone. And, I sort of managed with that for all these years because it was basically, I think it's like my favorite Pink Floyd album. I mean, and the reason I hesitate with that is because, I grew up a big Pink Floyd fan. Like one of the first 70s bands that my mum introduced me to through her collection was Pink Floyd, because she had Dark Side of the Moon. And so that's the first Pink Floyd album I ever heard, and I fell in love with that album, and I still love that album. And, when I got into my teens, I discovered Wish You Were Here and The Wall and Animals. And those four are the big four, right, of Pink Floyd albums. That's like the holy tetralogy. And, they're all four of them are masterpieces. I see some people, some people that I respect online, saying, like one of my favorite YouTubers is Andy Edwards, and he's always shitting on Pink Floyd, which is pretty funny. And I can see the humor in that, and I can see his point as well about them being sort of these poshies, doing how did he put it? It's like corporate rock. I think they sort of, there's some truth in that. It is very universal, but I think it's great. I think he's a little, I think he's being overly harsh just for the theatricality of his videos. And, I think it's undeniable that those four albums are masterpieces. But of course, the history of Pink Floyd is very complex, and, they started off with Syd Barrett, and the first album, was really something quite different, that psychedelic, quirky, sort of goofball, British, trippy, that real sort of mid to late 60s, psychedelic sort of craziness that they were doing. The guys like Frank Zappa were also doing, and probably doing it much better, on a technical level. But Syd Barrett had a lot of charisma, and he was the driving force of the band. And of course, when he sort of lost his marbles after taking too much acid, the band was kind of directionless. They brought in David Gilmour to sort of initially to prop up Syd Barrett on guitar, and so he was actually in the band with Syd. But because Syd's like condition was deteriorating so quickly that he couldn't play live very well and then at all. So eventually he was turfed from the band, and they continued on as a four-piece with Dave. And you know, like they did a series of albums. They did a lot of albums that are, you know, they have high points on them, and there are fans of these albums. And you know, I loved Pink Floyd so much that I used to give these albums a lot of grace back in the day. But if I'm really being honest, most of them, like, in fact, all of them are a really mixed bag. You know, there's at best, you know, some of them are just pretty shitty, or you know, well, maybe that's unfair, but like, I'll go with the mixed bag thing. You know, like, and they sort of seem to be stumbling around, not really quite knowing who they were or where they wanted to go. You know. And eventually, you know, eventually though, they sort of, as they got closer to, as the 60s ended and as they came into the 70s, and I think maybe like doing a couple of film scores and stuff like that, they sort of, maybe that helped focus them and focus their songwriting. And between, you know, Roger Waters getting sort of a stronger hold on the sort of narrative direction of the band, and Gilmour and Richard Wright and Nick Mason to some degree, like, you know, getting more technically proficient, you know, they sort of start to pull it all together. And the first album where you really see them pull it together and create something really really special, I think, is Metal. But it's not quite there. Like, for me, that I don't really listen to the Metal much, because I prefer, like, the high point of Metal is, of course, Echoes. And the version here on this is the definitive version, in my opinion. It just smokes the album version, I think. It just has so much more power and everything like that. And as I was saying about Steven Wilson and being a bit worried about how he would handle this, I think it's turned out really, really good. You know, as soon as I put it on my sound system and cranked it up, it sounded great. So I'm really relieved about that. It does sound a little different. Like, the vocals do sound a little bit more studio produced than they do on the original DVD mix. Or the VHS mix or whatever. Like, I think I'm so used to that sound, like the vocals sounding a little bit more echoey and distant, but they are really, you know, clear and prominent. You can hear the harmonies beautifully, and you can hear all the instrument, all the separations really good, although it always was recorded very well. So I think Steven Wilson, like, had a lot to work with here. He didn't have to do that much to make it sound great, because it already sounded pretty great. What's interesting about this album is this is the sort of the period where that sort of long run of somewhat aimless direction that the band had, of trying to figure out who the hell they are, was really coming to an end at this point. This is kind of like this is like the culmination of that. This is the final boss of that era, and they fucking knocked it out of the park. In fact, this wasn't even meant to be. This was like, for them, this was like kind of a little bit of an annoyance. This wasn't meant to be such a big deal. I think they filmed it for a TV show. Was it a German TV show or something? I can't remember, but but you know, they brought in the incredible film crew and director, and they did a fantastic job with it. You know, filming in the amphitheater in Pompeii, and just them alone in the amphitheater. You know, the way it's filmed, you can see all the film crew and everything like that. In fact, you know, we can get some pictures in here. There's the inside. All right, you can see there they are set up there. There they are set up there. And that is actually a picture not from Pompeii. That some of the reels were lost, the film reels, and so they had to redo some of the tracks. So they went into a studio and they set up, and you know, the film crew director set up all these lights and everything, and gave it a really cool look. And it sort of like makes you feel, like, for years I just thought they were filming at night there. I didn't realize that it was in a studio. So. But what's so cool about this is that even though like for them it was like kind of this, you know, just another, almost like an inconvenience along the way of their tour, because it was sort of like it caused them to miss some dates or something like that. I'm not quite sure of the whole story, but it turns out to be like a document of one of the coolest, most badass live performances in rock and roll history, in my opinion. I mean, there's just something so cool about it. The movie is incredible. If you haven't seen it, if you're a Pink Floyd fan and you haven't seen it, you must see it. It's so damn epic. Just seeing the guys young and, you know, in Pompeii, and the wind blowing and the music sounds gigantic and it's just cranked and rocking, and, you know, this is like what I love about rock and roll music. This is what I love about bands and stuff, is when you have a real band playing, driving the amps hard, playing the drums loud, singing into a loud microphone through a big PA, and it just sounds massive, and you know, it's glorious, you know. And that's the thing that really is really well captured in the movie, and it's really well captured on this album version of it. And for many years, like, I was like searching, like, why, surely they've released this as an album at some point. And I always used to search around, and I mean, like, I remember buying this on VHS originally, and then they eventually released it as a DVD, and I thought, okay, if they released it as a DVD, surely they will put out a CD version of it, like an album version of it. But no, they didn't. It came out like in a box set. There was a Pink Floyd box set, and it was there. That was like the first time it was on CD, but the mix on that was shit. It sounded like really bad. Anyway, the cool thing with this is, so there's the sleeves. As you can see, you've got set the controls for the Heart of the Sun there, and there's another picture from inside, and then we've got the other disc. There you've got the famous back of the amps there with Pink Floyd London written on the back. It's so cool, like, as the film's going and the camera's tracking, like on obviously on tracks going behind it, just gives this really cool vibe. Careful with that axe, Eugene. I'm not a fan of Roger Waters as a human being. I think he's an absolute piece of shit, but I got to give the guy credit for having one of the most badass screams in all of rock and metal history. I mean, like, metal guys eat your heart out, black metal guys eat your heart out. When you hear the scream on Careful with That Axe, Eugene, it is blood-curdling, murderous craziness. And in the film, when he screams like that, then they've got all these shots of the lava flows and everything, and it's just so fucking cool. And the band is like exploding, and it's like heavy. It's like the thing I love about this, it's like Pink Floyd at their heaviest, at their most rockin', you know, and loud and full on and real, you know, like, it's not like Pink Floyd, you know. A lot of people, when they think of Pink Floyd, they think of, you know, Wish You Were Here, and that sort of gentle chillness of some of their material, you know. But it's easy to forget that they also were capable of this kind of fire. The guitar, you know, the harmonies and echoes are really beautiful between David Gilmour and Richard Wright. But the band is cooking underneath it. And then when Gilmour kicks into that solo, the guitar solo in Echoes, and it's just like all fuzzed out and just, it's just so tasty. It's like, he's not a shredder. Gilmour is not a shredder, you know, but he just sometimes his solos are just so damn tasty, you know. I fucking love it. Oh yeah, and one more thing, which is a nice little addition that they chuck into the vinyl, is this big ass poster here. So that's cool. I have to figure out a way to get the creases out so I can hang up some of my posters that I get in my vinyl with my vinyl records, because I'm getting quite a few of them now at this point. What else can I tell you? Oh yeah, so the side, hang on, what am I doing here? Putting it in the wrong way. The side B of the second record comes with like alternate takes of Careful That Axe Eugene and Saucer Full of Secrets. Actually, that's the only part I didn't get a chance to listen to yet, but at some point I will. What's nice is like inside here, this glossiness, it's really unique. I haven't seen that in a vinyl before, but it's like glossy, you know, and it's cool. I don't know, nice, really nice packaging. What else can I tell you about this? I think, yeah, so like I was saying, like this is the turning point because like in the movie itself, they've got all the making of Dark Side of the Moon going on as well. So you've got like the concert, and interspersed between certain songs, there's clips from the making of Dark Side of the Moon, of them in Abbey Road Studios making Dark Side of the Moon. And of course, as we now know in hindsight, that is the big turning point for this band. You know, when Dark Side of the Moon came out, it was such a revolutionary album, and it is one of the greatest albums ever made. And it completely changed the trajectory of Pink Floyd, you know, and set them basically on a path to mega stardom. So it's really interesting to see this this point for the band, because, you know, it's really the end of that era. What are you doing?
Being quiet.
Yeah. Anyway, that was my flatmate being a weirdo as he went out the door. All right, so definitely worth getting. If you're a Pink Floyd fan, you should definitely get this. I highly recommend it. It's a great package. They've really done a good job with it. Steven Wilson's done a great job with the remix, and I would, you know, and I would tell you honestly, because I have been critical of some of Steven Wilson's mixes before, even though I think overall he usually does a pretty damn good job. Like, you know, the Gentle Giant albums and Jethro Tull albums he did all sound really good. I think they do actually sound better than the originals. But with Yes, I don't know, maybe he doesn't understand Yes or something. I just felt like it didn't sit right for me. But here he pretty much nails it. I would, if I had my druthers, I would probably have kept the vocals a little bit closer to the original mix, and also maybe on one of these days, I would have boosted the bass just a little more, maybe just a little more, and maybe add a little bit of dirt to it, because I don't know if it's just me, maybe it's like how my perception of it is, as being heavier, but like I'm sure that like on the VHS version and the DVD version, it just sounded a little meatier than it does here. But it's a small gripe. It's no big deal. So I wouldn't let that stop you, because it still sounds fucking awesome. It still kills. Really, really cool. Anyway, that's it. I think I've pretty much said everything I can say about this. Pink Floyd obviously went on to become, you know, one of the biggest bands of all time. And, you know, I think they completely changed who they were after this. This is the end of that era, and the best of that era, in my opinion. And like, now that it's an album, I can actually say that I think this is my favorite Pink Floyd album. It's a toss-up between this and Dark Side of the Moon. So there you go. All right, guys, thanks for watching, and I'll see you tomorrow.